From CBS 4 News, this is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Good morning, I'm Jim DeFede, and welcome to this special live one-hour edition of Facing South Florida. Now, the highly anticipated debate between Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz and her primary opponent, Tim Canova. Wasserman Schultz is seeking her 7th term with the backing of President Obama and the Democratic presidential nominee, Hillary Clinton, while Canova is a first-time candidate and law professor supported by Bernie Sanders and his legion of followers who have pumped millions into his campaign. At stake, Florida's 23rd Congressional District, which includes parts of Broward and Miami-Dade counties. For the first time, both candidates agree to debate, and it will happen now on Facing South Florida. And we're looking forward to it. The rules are straightforward. I will be asking questions of each candidate and giving the other a chance to respond. There is no clock, but I will interrupt a candidate if they avoid the question or try to monopolize the time. So I would ask each candidate to keep their answers straight and to the point. We're going to hit a wide array of topics over the next hour on both domestic and foreign policy, but I want to start with questions of character that each campaign has had to face. And Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz, I want to begin by talking about the WikiLeaks issue. And there were two things about the WikiLeaks DNC email release that caught my attention. One was the emails related to Bernie Sanders' religious beliefs and whether or not that could be used against him in the campaign. There were senior staffers on the DNC that did that put that out there, that suggested that this was an area that they could be used, or whether he's Jewish or whether he's atheist. I know you hadn't seen those emails because you weren't on them. But first, would you agree that those emails were wrong? And second, what does it say about your leadership of the DNC that your senior staff felt comfortable enough to talk about a person's religion in that way?
Well, first, Jim, let me thank you and CBS 4 for the opportunity to be able to come in and talk about the important issues facing not only the people of Florida's 23rd Congressional District, but of the United States of America. It's been a tremendous privilege to represent the people of this district for the last almost 12 years, and I look forward to continuing to ask for their support. On that question specifically, not only have I condemned the exchange in that email, I mean, I share Bernie Sanders' faith and would never condone anyone suggesting that we question or strategize about questioning someone's faith. In fact, in that email exchange, a staffer apparently specifically said that they knew the chairwoman would not be okay with that, which I absolutely wouldn't have been. So I absolutely condemn and condemned that email exchange, and that person is no longer working for the DNC.
Well, what does it say that they were able to do that? That they would even feel free enough to send an email like that? Well, is that the culture you created there?
Of course not. Look, I'm very proud of my tenure at the Democratic National Committee. When the President of the United States asks you to do anything, it is a tremendous honor, especially when you've been asked by the President to watch his back, help bring him across the finish line. I was a key part of helping President Obama get reelected in 2012, and the work we did to prepare for Hillary Clinton to be our nominee and then make sure that we could get her elected president is absolutely critical to advancing the issues that are important.
I just want to stay on WikiLeaks for a second.
But let me just specifically say, let's remember what happened at the DNC. The DNC suffered a 21st century Watergate. We were the victims of Russian espionage who stole private emails and our data and then gave them to the organization.
But it wouldn't make it, you're not suggesting that if they were just kept secret that those emails would be okay.
Well, no, what I'm suggesting is that Sony, who suffered the same fate, and that, we have had a lot of cyber attacks and an increase. There's no organization that when their private emails faced the bright hot spotlight, private emails are just that, private emails. But of course, let me just remind you, in that email exchange, the staff on that email exchange specifically said they knew the chairwoman would not be okay with this, and I would not have been.
Well, I'm going to bring Tim in, Professor Canova in a second, but here's an email exchange you were part of, which dealt with your opponent. It does appear now very clear that DNC staff from the emails were coordinating with your campaign staff in terms of monitoring your opponent's movements, even coordinating statements that the campaign was going to be released, was being run through and through the DNC staff and its advisors. Is that appropriate? Is it appropriate for you to use DNC resources to monitor your opponent?
Let's be clear. This is the 7th time that I have asked voters of the 23rd Congressional District to support my candidacy and for the privilege of representing them. I know how to run my own campaign. I didn't need anyone to help me. We've done just fine. I've won every election where I've been on the ballot. I would hope that staff who I work with would be interested enough, care about me enough, and be interested in my political success, that they would try to be involved in a way. But at the end of the day, there were not only no rules broken, but that type of intangible effort on the part of a political... No, let me finish my... No, Jim, let me finish my answer, please, because you asked a question and you need this answer. That type of intangible, incidental activity is completely legal. It follows our rules, and there was absolutely no violation of the rules or the law.
Professor Canova, I'll give you a chance to respond now.
Well, thank you. And first of all, I'd like to thank you for hosting this debate and thank the Congresswoman for agreeing to this debate. Those WikiLeaks email disclosures do show a pattern of monitoring the campaign. I appreciate what the Congresswoman is saying, that she's won every election. However, she's never had a contested primary. Contested primary perhaps is a little unsettling at this point. It is clear that there were DNC staff that were using DNC resources to monitor the campaign. What I found most troubling in the WikiLeaks disclosures was actually the discussion about the email from the Congresswoman to Chuck Todd asking that Mika Brzezinski of Morning Joe give an apology. I think that's this kind of, and it's a pattern. On May 18th, there were 2 staffers of the DNC that were talking about suppressing a story on MSNBC as well. I just think this doesn't show a real commitment to free speech and open discussion.
I'll give you a quick chance to respond, but then I want to come back to him and start talking about some of his issues.
The people of Florida's 23rd District, who I've had the privilege of representing, they know that the issues that are important in this campaign that will decide who it is and that they'll decide on who it is that will best represent them focus on who do they know will continue to go to bat for them on creating jobs, on protecting Social Security, on making sure that there's a strong voice standing up for Israel.
No, we're going to get to all those issues.
But my specific response is that we have an election that is going to be decided in the next 2 weeks, and it will be decided and should be decided not on the content of private emails that were stolen by Russian spies, but on who is best suited and the most prepared and has the most experience to represent this district and be their voice.
May I just respond and say that nobody cares about these emails right now.
Well, let me all right. That's a Bernie Sanders.
I'm not sure why we're talking about them then.
I just want to agree with the Congresswoman. I just want to agree with her and say that there are much more important issues.
So, Professor, I want to do,
and I look forward to talking
but
about
I want to come back to you for a second because I want to talk about. I want to give a little bit about our understanding of you.
Yeah.
You've only lived in this district since 2012.
Well, I've lived in South Florida since the mid-1990s.
Yeah, but off and on,
Excuse me.
But off and on.
Excuse me. I moved down here in the mid-1990s for a teaching job at the University of Miami. I've lived in South Florida for a total of 7 years. My family has been down in South Florida for decades, and I've been visiting for many years. I'd like to know how many years somebody has to be living in this district or in South Florida to be considered a Floridian.
Well, let me ask you this. You've only registered as a Democrat in the last year. You're running for the Democratic primary in this case. Why have you only joined the party in less than 12 months?
If I may correct you, I'll say this. I've been a registered Democrat for longer than Debbie Wasserman Schultz has. I was working on Capitol Hill for Paul Tsongas, the late U.S. Senator from Massachusetts, as a legislative aide when my opponent was still in high school. I've been a registered Democrat for more years. It is true that I registered independent for one election cycle, and quite frankly, it was from dissatisfaction with this Democratic Party. A feeling, you know, please, the Congresswoman has spoken for a while. It was a feeling that the Democratic Party had moved away from me. It had become much more corporate dominated, quite frankly, under the Congresswoman's leadership at the DNC. And I felt a frustration that millions of people around this country have felt with the Democratic Party. And I'm very proud that I made a decision to re-register Democrat and to fight for the Democratic Party.
You've raised almost $3 million, most of it from small donors.
Yes.
Can you sit here and tell me right now what percentage of your donors come from outside of Florida?
Oh, I think about 10% come from within Florida, and we have far more donors in the state of Florida than Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz does.
And how many from within the district would you say have contributed?
I have not broken it down and analyzed that.
I guess I'm trying to understand is, are you really just a vessel for the basically the anti-Debbie Wasserman Schultz people around the country, the Bernie people, who are so angry at her that they want to basically use you as an instrument to attack her? You're less a candidate than you are a revenge cycle for Bernie Sanders.
I don't see that at all. You know, if I had a different kind of politics, I would not get this kind of support nationwide that I have. The fact is, I've had a career for many years, for decades, working as a scholar, an activist, and both writing and working for change within the financial system. I've got a national reputation and have for many years.
Well, I just want to ask you how well you know this district. Do you know who the mayor of Southwest Ranches is?
I'm not going to play that game. No, I do not, and I'm not going to play that game. I do know that Southwest Ranches was the site of a proposed...
Jeff Nelson, by the way.
Very good. Thank you very much.
He's also the assistant principal at Cypress Bay High School.
I do know who my students are at Nova Southeastern University, and for the last 4 years, I have taught hundreds and hundreds of students there. I have spent more time in this district in the last 4 years than the Congresswoman has. I've seen on her website that she's had 70 events here since November. That's about 2 events per week.
All right, I want to bring her in.
I didn't finish making a point about Southwest Ranches. You brought it up.
You want to talk about the prison? We're going to get to the prison.
I do want to talk about the prison.
We're going to get to the prison in a second, I promise you. But go ahead.
Jim, I've been a lifelong Democrat. There isn't one minute since I have been a registered voter that I have not been not only a Democrat, but a liberal Democrat who's not afraid to say it out loud. You know, the term progressive is thrown around, and that's the popular term used now. I'm a liberal. I embrace the L word. And not only have I represented this community in the State House, in the State Senate, and now in the United States Congress, I've raised my family here. I have spent more than 30 years in Florida and 30 years in South Florida.
I want to come.
Please, if you don't mind.
Okay.
I have deep roots in the community. I've knocked on thousands and thousands of doors, been in the homes of my constituents.
I need to, just for time purposes.
And that is a huge
I want to come to you on money.
So, do I get a chance to respond and say this, that Hillary Clinton lived in New York for very little time when she ran for U.S. Senate. And as far as trying to say that I have not been civically engaged, as my opponent has time and again, it really is an insult to teachers everywhere. President Obama and Elizabeth Warren were both law professors prior to going into politics.
Well, we're going to get to more, but I have to move on to another topic that I wanted.
The reality is my opponent has not been involved in the community at all.
Let me go to a topic.
Was not a registered Democrat from when he got here.
Hold on one second.
And that's what voters need to know.
I want to talk about money in this election. Let's talk about the money in this election. You have made as a cornerstone of this campaign that you believe that she is tied to Wall Street money that's affected her views on everything from payday lending to for-profit prison and Southwest Ranches, to opposing extension of Consumer Protection Board regulations.
Yes.
What is your evidence that you believe she's bought and paid for by Wall Street?
Well, let's
make that case.
It was PolitiFact checked by the Miami Herald. The Center for Responsive Politics has all of these statistics, and for her entire career, she has raised millions of dollars from the largest corporations and Wall Street banks. Even this year, she's raised hundreds of thousands of dollars through a political action committee. She's raised hundreds of thousands of dollars from the wealthiest contributions, $2,000 or more, and she's got a super PAC that's spending crazy, like mad right now on her behalf. She's very tied to these corporate interests. I don't have a single corporate political action committee that has contributed to me.
Do you believe they control her?
You know what I think? I think that it's the culture of Washington. 60 Minutes had an episode on this not too long ago, that the average congressional candidate spends more than 30 hours a week dialing for dollars. And who are they calling? 30 hours a week. They're calling wealthy folks. That's where the money is. If you are dialing for dollars 30 hours a week in, week out, you start to adopt their viewpoint. I think that's what's happened with the Congresswoman. I think her politics have shifted a lot over the years. I think when she was first elected many years ago to the State House, she was a much more progressive and liberal. Now she's just liberal and not as progressive.
Congresswoman?
You know, I'm very proud of the support that I've had, that I've been able to attract throughout my entire career. What I'm also very proud of is that I have been a strong supporter of public campaign financing for all campaigns for my entire career. I'm a co-sponsor of a constitutional amendment that would overturn Citizens United, which was the worst, and I agree with President Obama, that was the worst Supreme Court decision ever handed down. It has allowed far too much corporate influence when it comes to providing contributions for candidates. We should make sure that the playing field is more level, and I have consistently supported that view. My opponent wants to run away from the fact that over 90% of the support that he has financially is from people outside the state of Florida. I have deep roots in this community, 24 years of a record of accomplishment and service to this community, raised my family in this community, and earned the support of my constituents again and again because they know me. They know that I've gone to bat on the issues that are the most important to them, and they know that they can count on me and that I've had their back.
One of the issues that your opponent has raised was your support in 2011, and I think we have actually the letter that you and Senator Bill Nelson signed supporting the for-profit prison to be built in Southwest Ranches. Was that support in 2011 a mistake?
First of all, let's be clear on what that center was. That was an immigration detention center. It was not a prison. And so I know but there's a big difference between an immigration detention center and a prison. There are prisons all the way out west.
But it was a for-profit entity that was going to run it.
That was actually sought by the town of Southwest Ranches. The town of Southwest Ranches supported and made the arrangements with that company to locate a immigration detention center. They had an agreement with ICE and with the company that was going to build that center.
You then later came out opposed to it, correct?
Let me be clear. I was doing what I always do, which is when I have a municipality come to me and ask me for my help, of course, we take a look at that issue very carefully, and we do what we can to facilitate their request.
Was it a mistake to send that letter, in hindsight?
No, it wasn't a mistake to be able to try to assist. This was an important economic driver. Southwest Ranches, let's keep in mind, has almost no commercial tax base. They only have about 7,000 people that live in Southwest Ranches, and so this was an opportunity for them to be able to generate revenue and also have a low impact.
I need to bring him in, then we need to take a break. Go ahead.
I would like to.
A low-impact facility like a detention center
let me bring him in.
is not going to house criminals.
Let me bring him in. Go ahead.
I would like to get a word in edgewise at this point. It was a bad decision, and for-profit prisons and for-profit detention centers are not a good idea. Florida leads the country in for-profit detention centers and prisons. We should not have a permanent lobby that has an incentive to be locking folks up. As far as I'd like to answer the question about where my donors come from, I'm very proud that I have a national donor base. My opponent wants a national donor base and has one herself. She does direct mail all over the country. She seems upset that suddenly I'm doing very well at the game that she was doing as far as raising money nationally from small donors. And the reason I have a national donor base is because my opponent has been a leader nationally, and her leadership has been seen to be a failed leadership. And that's why I'm very proud to have the support of Americans all over the country, and these are working Americans, nurses and teachers.
I got to take a break here. We're late for our first commercial break. We'll come back, we'll pick up, we'll do more. We'll be right back with more of this debate.